Hello and welcome back to Outside the Classroom. It's a nice day. We have sunshine finally, at least a little bit of sunshine out there right now, but it promises to be a brighter day across the region. We're going to have lots of interesting and fun and unique activities to work on throughout the day today. I'm meteorologist Ryan Miller, science teacher as well, and we thank you for joining us. We're going to look at a lot of different things relative to the outside and what we can measure. Yesterday we were taking a look at a couple of things relative to the amount of rain that was falling. And we're going to be showing you a couple of items here. We're asking you to send in all of the activities that we're doing and pictures of you doing those activities. It helps to remind us to keep that mission going forward, to keep the education process going for all of us here as we're outside of school, but we're outside the classroom as well. So for one moment here, I wanted to take a break. A couple of days ago, we talked about the idea of patterns showing up in poetry. I had a viewer and a friend of mine that was watching sent this poem in with the pattern of AB, AB. No, excuse me, AABB. Billy and I watched your show. Our friend Ryan, way to go. You're creative, kind, and smart, giving the community a common heart. Good stuff. So, well, that was it, I guess. Anyway, well, thank you for the poem there. It's touching, and I appreciate y'all tuning in. We're going to go now and take a look at a couple of things. We made rain gauges yesterday to measure the amount of rain, and we have a video of one of our viewers, Julia in Arlington, who was able to send us a video in measuring her rainfall at her house.
Hi, Mr. Miller. I'm Julia from Arlington, and this is my rain gauge. So first, we had a ruler, but it was broken, so we had to print out a ruler. And so I cut it 4 inches because right here, you see it's curved, so it wouldn't work very well. And then I covered it in tape so it would be waterproof. And then we tried a rock, but that was kind of too big. So my dad went to look in the garage for something he could put in it. And he found golf balls, which are right here. We put in 3 so it'd be heavy enough. And once we get it here, you see this? We would put a marking right on the side here and then write a letter for what day it is. And we would take these out because then we would know the precise measuring, and then we're gonna make a chart for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And now I'm gonna put my rain gauge out over here, like right here, so I can get the rain.
Julia, thank you so much. We do invite you to go to WJLA.com/chime in. Send us your photos, send us your videos, and please keep taking that data, keep that process of learning about the weather and weather patterns going. If you do not have the resources that we're showing you here on television, well, we're trying our best to provide you some things to use. You can go to WJLA.com. We have a template of a ruler that you can download, and if you have the capability of printing it out, that would be great. You could actually cut it out and tape it to something rigid, perhaps a stick from outside, and cover it with tape, and then it would be waterproof. You could use that to measure the rainfall in your rain gauge. We've had a couple of folks send us some pictures from Aldi. I wanted to show that picture now, if that's possible. We could pull that up. I believe we have Elena from Aldi taking some measurements and putting some things together for us. Elena, thank you so much for that picture. And we're going to now head to a time-lapse video of some of the things that we spent some time doing yesterday at my house using simple things. We had straws, paper plates, a folder, a used folder, and some cups from home that were disposable, some glue, a paper clip and a pin, and that's pretty much it. And we made weather vanes yesterday, wind vanes to measure the direction of the wind, and we made anemometers. I'm going to invite my daughter Kennedy to come on up right now. Kennedy, come up if you could for a moment. It's working. Just to give you an idea, turn around for just a second. You can hang out. One other thing I wanted to mention, it's Thursday, and at the school I teach at, Washington Liberty High School in Arlington, our Thursdays are College Pride Days, and we're encouraged to wear our college shirts, and you can probably tell the college that I went to based upon what I'm wearing right here. But back to this for a moment. This is our working weather vane, where we can measure the direction the wind is coming from. Want to blow on it here or tap it? It works better right now when there's wind. We don't have any wind. It's a very still morning. But that's a good example of an anemometer, or excuse me, of a weather vane. Could you go get the anemometer and bring it back here? So this will tell us and measure the direction the wind is coming from, which is important in terms of weather patterns. And then this is an anemometer. It's a working anemometer, and it can tell you the speed of the wind. We're going to be putting some things online later today that will allow you to calculate the speed of the wind. If you build this very simple anemometer, we've got a clothespin right here that we jammed into a pencil. We've got some straws that we stuck together. We've got some cups that we harnessed, and we put it into a paper plate. One of the other alternatives that you could do once you have this is to get the crayons out and decorate this. One caveat, one thing to note, if you're going to make your weather vane, your wind vane, to measure the direction that the wind's coming from, you're going to want to align it with the directions, north, south, east, and west. If you go to our website and look at our show from Monday, from the 24th, I believe it was, or 23rd, you can learn how to make a compass at home so you can line this up appropriately with the directions, and then we can figure out that direction that wind is coming from. So we've got anemometers that we've been working on, we've got weather vanes that we've been working on, and we invite you to please put these things together or ask us questions, interact with us on Facebook. How did you do this? How did you do that? If you don't have a clothespin, what's an alternative? If you don't have cups, what's an alternative? We'll try to answer your questions as best we can to give you some ideas to keep science and to keep math and everything else going at home. Thank you, Kennedy. If you want to head over back there for just a second or two, we are actually going to be talking about the idea of it being simple, and that these activities can be done with things around the house without a run to the store to buy supplies. But one of the other items I did want to mention is that when you begin using these devices, and I'm going to grab the cords and everything else that I'm attached to here, when you make these devices, we invite you to start collecting and keeping data. You can, and this is just an exaggerated view of some graph paper that you could put together. My son Seaton was able to put this together. You don't need paper this big, obviously, but this is one of the ways that you can keep track of the data you're keeping. We have on the outside the classroom website at WJLA.com some graph paper that you can go and download and use. Let me pull that up right now. You can download this, print it if you want to, and then you can start charting out and measuring and looking at things. You'd maybe want to consider taking a look at when the wind is blowing, the directions it's coming from. You could try to chart out the speed of the wind. You could have speed on your y-axis and the date on your x-axis along the bottom. Or if you wanted to go to our website, you can check out as well. We put together a wind and weather diary that you can use to keep track of the wind direction, keep track of the wind speed, and the weather conditions that are associated with that. One of the things we're trying to do is to come up with and associate patterns with wind and weather, and that's an idea for you. More when we return. Elena from Aldi, we appreciate you tuning in. We thought earlier we had some photos to put up on the screen. My apologies, we did not, but hey, we've got it now on my phone here, and this is on the Chime In section of WJLA.com. Share with us the good things happening in your life, the activities that you're doing at home as we're away from work and school, and these are some of the items that you can consider doing. But Elena, thank you so very much for being able to share that with us and measuring. Please measure the rainfall, and I'll tell you what, if you have not built a rain gauge yet, We've got more rain, unfortunately, coming up here tonight possibly, and then heading into your next few days. So get those rain gauges out there, measure the amount of rain that we've been receiving, report back to us. We're going to be building a map that you could use online to interact with us, and then we can start keeping tabs of all the weather data that we're getting around the region here with all the storms that interact with the Mid-Atlantic. Another thing I'd like to invite you to do is check out the website and try to make us some logos. If you don't mind, our Outside the Classroom logo is up online. Please put together a logo. If you don't mind as well, you could color it in, put your name on it, and then take a picture of it and share it with us. We'll print those pictures out, those logos out, and we'd love to fill the entire wall with your handiwork and with all the things you're doing. So those are some ideas. Let's get back now to the idea of potentially graphing or charting out the data that we collect. If you wanted to make a chart of the data that we're collecting, here are some ideas. You need some graph paper. This is just a bigger view of it. But let's say we wanted to keep tabs on the amount of rainfall that we're getting. Yesterday we measured 0.4 inches of rain, almost a ½ inch of rain. So we could start by putting the amount of rain on the y-axis here, and 0 would be at the bottom. And then maybe we could say these are tenths of an inch. 1, 2, 3, 4, ½ an inch right here. 6, 7, 8, 9, this is 1 inch of rain right here. The abbreviation for rain is that 2 dash mark, or for inches, is that 2 dash mark right there. It looks like a quote that you would put around if you're doing some writing. And then on the bottom, we can put our date. So yesterday's date, it was the 25th yesterday. All these days seem to be blending together. Parents at home, you can probably understand exactly what I'm saying. Yesterday was the 25th, so we could put 325 down here. And then on our graph paper, we could use a different color, and we could indicate that we received 0.4 inches of rain. So if you count up, here's 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4. So then you can draw in here the amount of rainfall that we received or that you received and measured yesterday, and then we can keep going. Now, one of the things that you might want to consider is that we don't necessarily get rain every day. So one of the things you could do is just skip, and then the next time we get some rain, you can put that date in there, and we can continue to graph and determine how much rainfall we get over a period of time. You can do this and perhaps save this work or even take a picture of your work, share it with us, but more importantly, you could use it to look back next year at this time when we're hopefully in school and say, hey, what happened last March 25th? Let's go back and see, oh, we got some rainfall, 0.4 inches. Maybe it'll be dry a year from now. Maybe it'll be a little bit better. We hope so. We'll be back here with some more activities on landscape and bird and animal behavior when we return. As we move from the theme of patterns into relationships, one other activity that you could potentially do at home is to get your child outside and begin to come up with a plan of what's around where you live. You can draw out and create a map that shows you the different organisms and the things that are living, whether it's animals or whether it's actually plants. You can look at the behavior of these organisms. Do you see certain types of grasses or weeds growing in a certain location? Why would they be there? Do you see any trees that are blooming right now, or any shrubs or flowers that are coming out now relative to potentially later in time? See if you can identify some of these organisms and create that map. Try to figure out and determine the behavior of the organisms around where you live. Do you see a squirrel every day at the same time? Do you see the same squirrel? How do you know? What are the characteristics that you can look for to try and identify all of the organisms, whether they're plants or animals, that are around where you live? It can be birds, it can be squirrels, it can be anything. And please share us your videos, or share with us your videos or anything that you find. And if you need help answering some questions, we're here for you. And here at Outside the Classroom, we're continuing to keep our eye on the environment. We've got folks that are getting out now and heading to work to do some of their essential jobs, and lots of things that are happening outside as the sun continues to break through those clouds. We have looked at the behavior of some animals. One of the reasons I brought that up in the video you just saw was that every day at about the same time, we see the same squirrel in my backyard that comes parading through the backyard looking for food and foraging. That squirrel, we know it's the same one because number one, it's black, and most of the squirrels that we have around here are gray. And it's missing most of its tail. I wish we had it out here right now to show you, but it's actually a great way to kind of keep track of the animals, their behavior, and you could keep a diary of the things you see, the birds you hear, the birds you see. There's something called a life list where you can keep track of all of the different types of birds you've seen in your life. If you want to take that activity up a notch and kick it up a few, you could actually start to identify the organisms. What are the scientific names of the organisms that you see all around your home, your apartment? Keep a list of all of the wildlife that you see. You'd be surprised. A lot of folks say, oh, well, we've never really seen much around where we live. Well, if you're quiet and still, and depending upon the day or the weather, you'll be surprised at what you can see. From the behavior of animals, we could move into the behavior of plants. If you're interested in gardening and landscaping, and if you don't have your own garden, that's absolutely fine. I invite you to try this activity, try this activity at home. It's a way to actually map out what's around wherever you live, your apartment building. If you go online and do some research on landscape architecture and best practices, you can start to create a model and to create an idea of what's around you. If you are trying to show a tree on a map, this is a great way, and I am not a landscape architect by any means. I do have some friends out there that are. Dennis, how are you? You can take and actually create and show the position of your plants around where you live by drawing circles. You could put a dot in there, and then you could label that as a pine tree. If you wanted to take it a step further, you could say, hey, well, what type of pine tree is it? You could also look at and try to keep track of the trees that are changing as we progress through spring. So if you have a tree over here that is perhaps a flowering tree and it has flowers right now, or a shrub or a bush, you could use different types of patterns on your map that you're making here, your plan that you're making to show those different types of plants. So let's say this has pink flowers. And those pink flowers first showed up on March 18th. So you could say 3/18 right here, and you could use this as a diary of keeping track of the behavior of the plants around where you live. If trees are getting leaves as you begin to look outside, and you can try to keep tabs of that, maybe take a picture of those trees, take a picture of a plant and say, oh, well, this tree got its leaves on March 18th, or its leaves started coming out on April 1st. It's a way to keep track of how things change around where you live. And then next year at this time, you can bring this back up, take a look at it, try to compare and see if there are differences in when those trees' flowers and leaves come out. And we have a picture of some chickens. These are the quote-unquote girls my Aunt Pat has out in her land and her farm out there in Winchester in the Shenandoah Valley. Thank you, Aunt Pat, for sending in the picture. I love the pattern showing up on those chickens. I know nothing about chickens other than that they give us eggs, and the eggs that come from those chickens in particular, I do know, are delicious. So if you know anything about chickens that you could share with us, please jump in on the conversation on Facebook. We're live right now on Facebook. Hit us up on Instagram. Anything that we can do to share knowledge, share activities, and be a resource to everybody out there as we work through this socially distant time. We are going to continue to look at patterns for the next couple of days and begin to transition over to the idea of relationships showing up in math and in science and in English and in behavior and health. We're here to cover and talk about all kinds of things on Outside the Classroom. We're even going to be doing some cooking coming up here. I wanted to invite my colleague, Rachel Kay. Meteorologist Rachel Kay is going to be joining us here, and to make sure we're all aware as we take a look over this little bit of distance between us, we have 2-meter sticks, which are almost or a little bit longer than 3 feet here. But just to make sure that you're aware that we're keeping our distance from one another.
Yes.
And making sure that we're trying our best to stay healthy. And Rachel has been keeping track of everything on Facebook and on social media. Anybody out there now that we could answer some questions?
Yeah, so we've got quite a few viewers on Facebook. It's been, of course, fluctuating throughout the day or throughout the morning. We had over 100 earlier. A few comments, no questions yet, but I just want to emphasize for you guys at home that it's simple, it's my phone, but in today's day and age, that's really all you need. So I'm monitoring the Facebook live stream. I see all the comments as they pop up. And it doesn't have to be a question if you have something you want to share with us, whether it's what you've been doing at home, patterns you noticed. Someone the other day commented that they noticed patterns of grocery shopping. So you walk in the store and where do people start? How do they circle around on their way to the checkout? So things like that we love to know. But in particular questions, if you do have those for me, for Ryan, whether it's about the weather, anything he's been talking about, the activities you can do at home, yeah, we're happy to answer that for you. So we'll keep monitoring, and if anything does come up, we'll let you know, either by answering kind of through the text here or perhaps live on air.
Yes, absolutely. And I also wanted to stress one thing. Being a teacher, I do have several connections in the school system that we could rely upon here, the Arlington school system. If you have a question at home related to my kids keep fighting and we need to figure out a way to simmer them down, please let us know. We'll take care of that as best we can and try to provide you some advice. Thank you for watching Outside the Classroom. We're going to have more when we return. Welcome to Outside the Classroom. I'm meteorologist, science teacher Ryan Miller. We appreciate you tuning in. We're here as a resource to anyone out there, whether you're watching us on television or online. We're here to provide resources, activities, lessons, and it does not have to relate to science. It can be math related, it can be grammar, English, literature, social studies, anything that you need to keep that education process going with all of our schools closed. We want you to know that we're here as a resource to connect you with the folks that can help us keep that educational and learning process going. Throughout the show today, we're going to be looking at phases of the moon. We're going to be looking at mapping certain patterns and certain things in and around where we live. And we're also going to be taking a peek at some activities that you can do, some games that you can create and play at home. We're going to start, though, as we move through the show here, we're going to start by looking at some video that was taken here as one of my colleagues, meteorologist Rachel Kay, paid a visit to a school recently looking at some ideas of patterns showing up in science.
Rachel Kay, I'm here this morning at Ideaventions Academy in Reston. Of course, schools across the area closed, but they're still open and working virtually. So I came to meet founder and teacher Ryan Heights, and we're going to go do a couple of experiments for you guys. This first one focusing on patterns. We're entering the Pasteur classroom where Ryan's waiting for us.
Hi, welcome. Today we're going to be making pinhole cameras, or pinhole constellations. So we're going to start off with just a few things. We just need some aluminum foil, pretty easy. A cup, give me any cup that's sort of medium size that you can cut the bottom off of. We're going to cut the bottom off. I printed out some constellations. You can look online as well. And then we have some different light sources, like a old-fashioned sort of flashlight and then more a modern LED headlamp. We just cut the bottom off our cup. And now we're just going to take a large piece of tin foil and wrap it over the bottom. Okay, we have a little extra. Then we're going to take our thumbtack and we're going to poke holes in a pattern. Now the pattern you could choose could be from your constellation chart. I'm going to do Cassiopeia, which is a wintertime constellation. It's kind of shaped like a W. All right, so now I have my pattern. The next thing we're going to do is go over to the wall and test it. All right, so what we're going to do is test this out. I have my flashlight, and I'm going to put the flashlight into the cup, but I'm going to angle it. I don't want to hit, I want to hit it on the side of the cup. And now you can see, when I turn on the light, you can see Cassiopeia projected on the wall there. And if you have a darker room, you can make it bigger. Now, one thing that's neat is, if you actually turn this, it can act as a pinhole camera, and if I shine the light directly at the holes, you see something there. So I'm going to back it up a little bit so you can see a little bit better. But you can start to see a weird curly-Q shape. And that is actually the filament of this incandescent light bulb that's in this flashlight. So it's acting as a magnifier and making it bigger. And you can test different ones. So I have a LED headlamp here. Let's see what that looks like. Once again, I'm going to use it as a lens and shine straight at it. And you can see 5 LEDs. Now, there's only actually one LED in this headlamp, but we see 5 images because each individual pinhole is acting as a magnifying glass or lens. So have some fun with this and try different constellations. Also try the pinhole camera.
Hi everybody, I'm Bill Wilkinson. I'm a PE teacher, a health teacher, fitness instructor, and also a baseball coach. And I'm here to show you a few exercises that you can do while we're kind of sequestered, and but show you a few exercises you can do just in the comfort of your own home. We'll get those bodies moving, get you staying healthy. So we'll start out with a jumping jack, something we've been doing since we were in elementary school. And we probably made fun of it and said, why do we do this? But it's functional, get your body, whole body moving. So definitely one of my favorites. So anywhere between 10 and 30 seconds. And then I'll go right into what I call a scissor jack. And it's just a front and back movement. And again, warming your body up. Before you get into any type of resistance exercise or explosive movements, or quickness and agility movements, you want to warm your body for a minimum of 3 minutes. All right, now a little bit of a line hop, our imaginary line, going back and forth, keeping those feet together, keep your knees slightly bent. We call it soft knees up on the ball of your feet. And then I'll go right to a rope jump. We don't even have to have a jump rope, right? So we can jump rope without the rope if we're on a little bit of a low budget or a low ceiling. And then something as simple as moving to the stairs in your house, and you do like a step up, step down. So right here, so I'm up, up, down, down. And I'll go about 15 seconds with one foot leading and then transition into the other foot leading. So, another way to utilize your house. For me now, I want to warm up the core a little bit, so I'll go right down into a plank. You can go forearms, toes, keep that body straight, flexing the glutes, hammies, pulling that belly button in, keeping your core musculature tight. And again, hold this between really 15 seconds to a minute. If you want to modify it, there's multiple ways to do that. Keep that body parallel to the floor. And while you're doing that, you can take yourself into a state of instability by lifting up one of your feet. And then you can transition to a push-up position plank. Slight bend in the elbows. Now we've got tension on the upper body. So we've engaged our upper body musculature as well. You can again modify it. Here I like to call it the Spider-Man plank. You can do this from the elbows, forearms, or you can do it from the push-up position. So not bad there, crisscross. So definitely a lot you can do from that plank position. Those are just a few that you can do. Any type of squat movement, soft knees, feet basically shoulder width apart, squat down. What I like to say, sit in that chair that's not there. So we sit back, come back up, and you can make this explosive. You know, haven't warmed up just yet, so I don't want to go explosive too soon. Haven't warmed up enough, I should say. So just a nice squat movement. If you want to turn it into jumps, you can certainly turn it into squat jumps. I'll show you that in a second. Simple lunge squat. Make sure that you keep a 90-degree angle between calf and hamstring. And kind of imagine that you've got a string in the top of your head as we go up and down. Probably 8 to 12 on each leg. Switch it up. So definitely working the legs a little bit. All right, shake it out. If you want to become explosive, something as simple as a speed skater jump. And that helps you with your explosiveness, plus your balance. The landing is really as important as the explosiveness. Your balance and your ability to decelerate, change directions. So yeah, there's a few for you. There's a whole bunch more, a lot of great stuff on the internet. So many great fitness professionals out there put out great material as well. So there you go. Hope that helps. Take care.
Mr. Wilkinson, thank you very much for those activities. We're working the legs right now and trying to get some exercise as we are outside the classroom and really outside from a lot of things that we could be doing in and around the home, in and around school. We're trying our best to modify our way of life and the way we do things here so that we can all try our very best to stay healthy and keep others healthy. We heard from Bill Wilkinson in Fairfax and the exercises that he was showing us, easy things that can be done at home. We saw a video a little while ago. Rachel and I were working on putting that together, the video related to
the constellations and kind of creating your own star chart, if you will.
Okay.
A pinhole where I went to Ideaventions Academy in Reston. That's what you saw before the commercial break with founder and science teacher Ryan Heights, and he showed us how to kind of make that at home with just a few simple tools, a paper cup, some scissors, tin foil, and a flashlight. Any kind of flashlight will do. So that will continue to be online if you guys want to check it out and maybe try it at home. We would love to see your pictures and videos of your kids using that, whether he used 2 examples, using it to show the constellations and the patterns that the stars can create on your wall, or if you shift the way the light is looking through those holes you poke in the tinfoil, it can actually act as a pinhole camera and create patterns with the light in a whole new way. So it's kind of a fun thing you can do at home and experiment, play around with there. And speaking of constellations, that kind of takes us into a whole other idea here. We were talking about patterns in astronomy in general and phases of the moon.
Yeah, phases of the moon. Here's an activity that you can do at home related to the moon, and perhaps a little bit of homework if you want that challenge. If you can get outside today at some point, we want you to monitor the sky. Try to keep an idea of, or try to see if you can find the moon for one. And if you can find the moon, see if you can see if it's illuminated in some capacity, whether the right side is illuminated or whether the left side is illuminated. Try to see if you can identify and figure out where the moon is and if you see it. If you don't see it today, check out this evening, although I think the clouds are going to be rolling in here tonight and that could prohibit any of us from seeing the moon. But if you have the opportunity, keep an eye out for that moon. And one of the things that we can do, and what we'd like you to do, is to sketch the moon. If you do see it today, sketch the moon. What does it look like? How much of it is illuminated? Is it that right side? Is it that left side? And keep a moon diary. One of the things that I try to do when it's nighttime with my kids is we can actually go out to the sidewalk somewhere, get some chalk, and you can actually take the chalk and go to the sidewalk and keep a moon diary. Now, if it rains, obviously that's an issue, but if it does rain, one of the ways you can work around the rain, washing any chalk off the sidewalk, would be to take a picture of what you draw. So tonight, or this afternoon, or today, let's try out that moon diary. You can go, let's just say the moon looks like this, so you can sketch out what you see here. You can use some of your math to try and estimate how much of the moon is illuminated. You could take a look at it. And today's date, it is March, what is it, 25th? 26th today. I think that's a 3. Nope, 3/26. Well, if you could see that backwards, you would see the date. I can't write upside down, my apologies. But we could say that the moon is 20% illuminated, if that's the case here, the date. And if you could try your best to use some reference point on the sky or the horizon to see where it is. And the idea would be then you've got one chunk of the sidewalk for today's entry in the diary. Go to the one chunk of the sidewalk next to it. That's an idea for you that you can look at and keep tabs on the patterns we see as the moon goes through its phases.
Welcome back, guys. Meteorologist Rachel Kay here. And with all this talk of patterns and outside the classroom and keeping kids engaged and learning while at home, I was thinking back to my childhood and some of the ways I most enjoyed learning outside the classroom. And there are a lot of games that can be educational or just kind of get that brain rolling, trigger some new thoughts, ideas, and just ways of processing logic, particularly patterns. And so this is one of my favorite games from when I was a kid. It's called Set, and I wanted to kind of explain the rules, and I'll show you guys here, and if we have time, Ryan will join me, we'll maybe play around, but this is something you can do even if you don't have the physical card game. You can see the shapes, the colors, the shading here, and this is something that kids can so easily make their own version of, and it doesn't have to be the same shapes, colors, patterns that you see here. You can get creative. So there's kind of a way to level this game up. You can start simple, and then if you're playing with some older kids at home, even up through high school age, I mean, I love this game as an adult. So this is something you can really make your own. You can make your own rules up if you want. There's no way that you can go wrong when you're learning at home. But the basic rules of the game are to create a set. And a set would be to look for some patterns. And I have some examples here of what those patterns could be. Starting with purples and twos. So you've got 2 purple diamonds, 2 purple squiggles, 2 purple ovals. Then we've got another pattern here where everything is 3 and everything is green. 3 green open shading, 3 green stripes, and 3 green solid. But it doesn't have to be the same number. You can look for patterns in other ways. So here we've got squiggle, 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 stripe, stripe, stripe. So, I have these pre-laid out to make it a little bit easier, but if you want to level things up, what you could do is look for something that's all different. So these are 3 different colors, 3 different shading, and 3 different shapes. So that's where it gets a little bit more complicated, almost looking for the lack of a pattern there. So this is one of my favorite games. Again, you can just kind of create your own patterns on cardstock or paper at home and see what patterns you can find out of the shades that you have there. So Ryan, do you want to try and join me for a round?
Sure. I don't know if I'm going to be good. We're keeping our 6 feet, 1.83 meters, for those of you keeping score at home.
I'm going to lay out some new cards. This might be a little bit, these weren't well shuffled, which was good for examples, but makes it a little bit harder to kind of play around. But typically, if you were playing a game with somebody at home, we would have however many cards set out, and we would both be looking at the same cards at the same time, and it's kind of a game of speed. Who can find the sets the fastest? So, Ryan, I'll see how closely you were paying attention. Do you see a set here?
No.
Okay.
Yes.
What do you see?
I see the 3 greens.
The 3 greens. Yep, the 3 green ovals.
Yep, the 3 green ovals.
Yep, so that's a set. And then
right.
what you would do if you were playing at home is you would grab that. I'll keep it, so I'm not handing you the cards, but he would take those as his win, and then we would replace them with 3 new cards. And actually, these are, again, not shuffled, but that means I just laid out another set. Kind of the lack of a pattern here, where we've got all green, but diamond, oval, squiggle, I don't know what else to call that, solid, open, and stripes. So those would be another set technically in the game.
Would a set be these three green objects that we have here?
So this is where I say you kind of make the game your own. There's no reason, if you're just playing at home for fun with kids, of course that can be a set. You see the pattern, right? You see green, 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 1, 1, 1. Technically in the rules of the game, that isn't quite a set because these aren't all stripes.
Okay.
So if they were all stripes, then you would have more of a set there. So of course the game comes with real instructions, but I encourage you to just kind of make it your own at home.
Sure.
And see what the kids can come up with and what patterns they're seeing at home.
And one of the items and reasons why we're showing you this, to reiterate once again, is that you could make this if you wanted to. Get some paper, you can cut out some shapes or cut out some cards, even some cardstock or folders. Draw the shapes on there that you see here. We can put some of the pictures of the shapes on the Outside the Classroom website at WJLA.com. And that's one of the items that you can do at home if you are looking for an activity to perhaps do with your kids. We'll be back in just a moment. I am science teacher, meteorologist Ryan Miller. This is Outside the Classroom. We have been trying to show some activities that are potentially easy to do with very limited resources to keep that science and math and anything going here relative to the process of learning at home. One of the points of emphasis that I would like to make as an educator is that during these really tough times, it isn't necessarily about just completing tasks for grades. The idea here right now is to just focus on learning a new concept, not completing tasks. That's one of the missions here of Outside the Classroom, is just to learn something new daily, to come up with an activity to learn something daily. We had a question from someone watching us on Facebook Live, Van Lee. Thank you for sending in a question, asked, what's the difference between climate and weather? Great question, Van. The difference between those two, it really boils down to a period of time. Weather is what we experience daily. It's the conditions we get every single day. When you take those conditions and look at them over time and start to average them out, you can then get your climate, which is an amalgamation. It's a way that you can combine all of the weather data to get patterns that show up over longer periods of time. So great question, Van, and keep those questions coming. We'll try our best to answer them. I wanted to turn right now, and we're going to be finishing up the show today, looking at a resource that's available to you for free at home. The folks at ESRI, ESRI, which is a geographic information systems company, they are allowing us to use some of their tools that are online to do some mapping and to map patterns. If you go to ArcGIS, arcgis.com, you can click on the word map. And then when you do that, you can go and hit Modify Map. And I'm going to show you that here on the screen. And this is not something where you have to input any information to create an account. Modify Map is right there in the upper right-hand corner. If you click that Modify Map, you're given the option then to add things to your map. And one of the things we're going to add right now is where earthquakes are occurring all over the globe. I'm going to search for layers, and in search for layers, I'll type in earthquakes, and several things will pull up here. If I go down just a little bit, recent earthquakes can be added to the map, and these are all of the earthquakes occurring all over the globe, including the United States. We're not a very tectonically active area here in Virginia, but these are all of the earthquakes that we see showing up around the globe currently through this product on arcgis.com. Take a look. Here's your homework. Try to make this map. Take a picture of it, send it to us, and look for any patterns that you see and where earthquakes are occurring. This is Outside the Classroom. I'm meteorologist and science teacher Ryan Miller.